All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Solar Sailing, episode 23, if you can believe that. And I am Jason. My boat is Soul Seeker, a 37-foot Prout Snow Goose that I like to say has been upcycled instead of recycled as a solar electric liveaboard. So it's no longer a sailing vessel, it is technically a motor vessel. And we are joined here today with Patrick and Aaron. Fellas, introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your boat, and we'll get underway.
Go ahead, Patrick. It's all you. Showtime.
Thanks, Patrick. And my boat is Electra, Sailing Electra. We still have a mast. I'm the sole representative mast over here. It's a very small boat, a 1976 Cadillac, which I bought with two dead diesels and converted to a solar electric. And it works so well, I actually don't use my mast very much anymore, but it works. Over to you, Aaron.
Hey, thanks, Patrick. So, I'm Aaron with Extraordinary Horizons. It's a 65-foot custom powered catamaran. We are currently on the hard in Florida doing a major refit. I am not going to have a mast. And that's about it.
I love it. He just drops it's a 65-foot
Yeah,
vessel. That's about it.
yeah.
That's all.
It's a heck of a
Just a
lot of
little
work.
thing. All right. So as we get going today, I do want to remind everyone that we do value your comments. And we also want to remind you that under no circumstances are we responsible or liable for anything that goes wrong with your boat. We are giving you our experiences and sharing our stories, successes, failures, everything in between, and hope that that serves as an inspiration for you. We, along those lines, would love to hear from you about your own stories and what's going on with your boats. Heck, we might even have you on as a special guest if you've been following the show. We do devote time. We've kind of reorganized things where the first week of each month we're going to devote to these special guests. And so if you've been tracking along, you've seen really some remarkable vessels and heard some great stories. So maybe yours, if you share it with us, will find its way onto an episode in the future. Not promising anything, but sure am inviting you to share your thoughts and your story. Okay, so Patrick, it was his choice for the topic this week. So
Yeah.
introduce the topic, if you would, Patrick.
So this week is all about batteries. I mean, I like to consider myself a solar boat, but even a purely solar powered boat needs some battery power. Now, there's a lot of different options when you've got to choose batteries. Most people now choose one specific one. We'll get into that later. If you get the wrong option, you buy the wrong batteries, you have more problems than pleasure. But if you get the right ones, things just go fantastically well. We're also going to talk a little bit about different parts related to the battery, so how big a battery should be, different chemistries, a little bit about fusing, and what else we're going to cover, guys? Maybe a little bit about BMSs or things like that too.
You know, we're just going to have to see because this episode is such a fantastic one. You did a great job choosing it, very pertinent to all of our projects, whether they be Aaron's diesel hybrid electric scenario or our completely solar scenario or your sailing solar scenario. Like all of the above, as you said, need this. And so, as such, it has a humongous breadth of subtopics that we could dive into. We may even touch on a little bit the environmental stuff. We chatted about it. Who knows? That could be a full on episode in the future. So stay tuned for that. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this topic before we dive in?
Just like Patrick, I mean, it could be fantastic or it could be a failure. I mean, depending on how you approach it. Definitely, there is a huge amount of controversy around what makes the right battery setup, whether it's lithium ion phosphate, lead acid. So yeah, tons and tons of ways you could attack this one for sure.
Now, I do want to remind everyone before we dive in, which we're about to do, that we not only encourage, but we specifically want, we're requesting your engagement in the form of questions in the chat. If they're related to the topic, we are more than likely going to share that, interrupt the conversation, and have your question added to the mix there. We work hard to get those questions added so that our panel here can address those. We value your not activity, your active feedback. And so please do engage in that way. Without any further ado, Patrick, let's dive into our slideshow and get started.
Yeah, we'll start with the topic there. What you don't know might shock you. It might not only shock you, it might actually kill you if you have the wrong type of batteries on your boat. Things can get a little bit explosive. But let's jump into the next slide. Let's see where we're looking at.
Yeah.
Great. So we've actually left off one type here, the lithium ion. We're not even going to talk about lithium ion batteries, or what you'll find a lot of electric cars. They explode, so we're not talking about them at all. We're talking about a few others, and the easy option is the one at the top there, lithium iron phosphate. That's the one that everyone thinks about when they talk about boats. That's what all of us are planning to put on our boats, or already have on our boats, and there's a very good reason for that. It's a very stable chemistry. You can't make them explode if you tried. You can short them out directly. You can poke them with things. You can shoot a bullet straight through them, and the battery's not going to smoke. It's not going to work anymore, but it won't smoke, and it won't catch fire, and it won't kill you. But these are quite new batteries. So in the realm of batteries, they've probably been around for about 10, maybe 15 years or so in total. And before that, everyone had lead acid batteries, which was the one on the bottom left there. Very similar to the type you've got in your car. You get sort of different types of them. But they were sort of the go-to battery because I think Chevron Texaco owned the nickel metal hydride patent, and they wouldn't release any large nickel metal hydride. So if you wanted anything electric 15 plus years ago, you had lead acids. Now, nobody would put lead acids on a boat today for a propulsion bank because they are monstrously heavy. Probably about 2 or 3 times. In fact, if you're looking at capacity for capacity, usable capacity, they're probably about 3 times the weight of lithium iron phosphate. So, unless you really need a heavy keel on a monohull sailboat, they're not really an option. The new kids on the block is sodium ion. Lots of promise with sodium ion. And solid state batteries are edging in. Bleeding edge technology probably is where I'd put them. Not quite ready yet, but at some point we are going to see solid state batteries. So a solid state battery is basically where your entire battery, not just sort of parts of it, your entire battery, anode, cathode, the whole lot is a solid. There's no liquids floating around. In theory, it gives you a huge amount of stability, and it gives you a very, very safe option.
Well, I
But
would
maybe we
also
should compare these. So go ahead.
I would also inquire or even assert it should shave a lot of weight, right? Like when you multiply that out over a lot of batteries.
Yeah. In theory, yes. So it's still very new technology. We haven't seen sort of the real promise yet. A few years ago, they were actually talking about solid state batteries as batteries without a sort of a standard electrode and cathode. They were talking about something called hypercapacitors. Um, Hopefully, if we get hypercapacitors one day, we'll have things which are incredibly light, can be drained from completely full to 0 volts, and we'll have like 100,000 cycle lives. Those are not quite there yet. These solid state batteries are still chemical based batteries, um, but offering sort of a lot closer to the world we're looking for in terms of
Now,
batteries that will go forever.
Patrick, if I can interrupt real quick, we do have a viewer who
Yeah.
has posed the question. So why not make a battery keel, like a keel that's completely battery?
Yeah, yes, it's a great idea. If you're on a monohull and you're busy designing your keel, you could put tons and tons of batteries in it. The only downside is it's typically the lowest part of the boat, and that's where water tends to collect. Um, Most of us here have got catamarans because catamarans convert to electric a lot easier. So in theory, we could put all the batteries in the bottom of our hulls and still have a little bit of space above where the water collects. Wouldn't be a bad idea at all. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So I know if we can take a moment here before going to the next slide. On SoulSeeker, we have the lithium iron phosphate, and true confessions here. I've been inspired quite a bit from Patrick and Candace, his wife, and their boat sailing or Electra, and their channel sailing Electra. And so we took their example almost as a template and went, hey, what has he done? Okay, let me go see what I can do with that. Wait, rewind. What did he do again? Oh, gotcha. And so, like he talked about his lithium iron phosphate cells. And so I went and found ones like that on Amazon and said, okay, I'm going to order them, and did it. And then learned how to series connect them, attach the BMS. It's been a lot of learning. And so if you're in similar scenarios, which I know a lot of our viewers are, they're like, hey, I feel bold enough, dumb enough, smart enough, challenged enough. I don't know. Some of those things fit all of us to try this out and spend my money, which I've worked hard at getting on this stuff because I want the adventure. I want the challenge. I want the possibilities.
Yeah.
And so for us, we went lithium iron phosphate. Don't regret it at all. I do know the horror stories of lithium ion. That's why when we initially put it on here, as we were building this slideshow, we were like, do we even include it? And it was like, no, I don't even know who put the comment. It had to be Patrick, but it was no, because it's going to explode and kill you and your family or something like that. I was like, oh my God. Aaron, what about you on your boat? I know it's a big girl.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you looking at batteries?
So since we're not totally ready to build battery banks yet, I've been kind of hanging out and seeing, like Patrick mentioned, this technology is going like at the speed of light. So right now, lithium iron phosphate is the key player, right? It's at the top, but solid state is coming in. So though I'm looking at those two options, maybe solid state will be a little bit further along when we're ready to build a battery bank. But if not, we'll be going with lithium iron phosphate. So earlier on, I had the idea of using a Tesla coffin, like the whole Tesla battery pack, and one of them is lithium iron phosphate. I believe it's from the series 3 Tesla. There's one specific model that is lithium iron phosphate, and the other ones are lithium ion, and you really don't want to mess with those because when they get wet, like they could cause a fire and explode and kill your family, and these kind of things. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. I'm not set in stone yet. I'm not sure.
Fantastic. And then Patrick, you, as I've already kind of disclosed, but let's share what you're using on Electra.
Yeah, so I've been building electric bikes before I started building electric boats, and I was just getting into electric bikes when they started with the lithium iron phosphates. And for all of the reasons why I got on Electra, it's the same reasons I had it on an electric boat. Very safe. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to smoke. It's not going to. You've got incredible cycle life. I mean, the batteries are probably going to outlive me. In fact, my first electric bike was from 2014. It's still running on the same battery cells, and it must have, good, maybe 1,000 cycles on it or something like that.
Wow.
So it does really last forever. Good value for money. 10 years ago, it wasn't. 10 years ago, it was a premium product. But I think if you're buying lithium iron phosphate now, it's cheaper than buying lead. And
Yeah,
that's a huge bonus. If you look at the sort of the total lifespan that you're going to keep the batteries for. In fact, I think if you even look at the purchase prices now, the lithium iron phosphate cells are even cheaper than lead cells as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
it just worked really. I've
So-
got the smallest battery pack I think is possible on a solar electric boat. I've just got 14.4 kilowatt hours. But my pack weighs 85 kilograms. I could put a second pack in and double it, but because I run mostly on solar, it's not really a huge need for me at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, Patrick was mentioning the value and the prices. You could get a ready-made battery, something already put together, so that you didn't have to build the cells. And I mean, they've come down a lot in price and continue to come down. So I mean,
yeah,
if
they've
you
got the server rack style batteries that are
Those too.
LFPs, and those are nice. I mean, what you're going to do is pay for it. Like they've already built it for you, so they're going to charge you more as a result. I mean, that kind of makes sense. I get that.
Correct. Like
They're also a little bit heavier if you look at the ready-made stuff compared to the non-ready-made. So for a standard pack where you build it yourself, you can probably do it for about 85, 90 kilos. But when you buy the server rack batteries or something like that, you're always looking at an extra 20 or 30 kilos, which is probably because it's made really well.
What
You pay
about
for it.
so Patrick? What about a not a server rack type battery? What about a regular like battery
Okay.
box type battery?
Powerwall style battery box. Yeah, they're all a little bit heavy and they're all
Yeah.
made to be mounted differently. So you got to make, figure something out that's going to work with your boat. If you've
Yep.
got a nice vertical bulkhead, you can bolt the thing to because you don't want a battery to come loose. That would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
It might work for you.
Yeah. Cool.
In the DIY realm, I mean, my boat is very DIY. I've got a flat plate of fiberglass and foam, and I've got four heavy duty straps, 250-kilogram straps holding it together. So I've got a ton of straps holding mine down, but that's it.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
But
he
it
just dogged
3
out
years, touch
Electra
wood.
on screen, and I'm going to defend her. She's a beautiful boat.
But it works. I mean, it works, and it's taking him out there, and he's got the freedom to do what he wants to do.
That's
So
right. All right, let's dive back into our slideshow here. And so this next slide here is one that I put together and kind of ran it by the team. And it's just a comparison table. And I used a 48 volt, 304 amp. That's my battery. I think it's the same as Patrick's battery. And use
Yeah.
that as kind of the entry level, like, here's what we're talking about. Let's build everything around this concept. And so used Amazon only because I wanted to get something that is very common and I wanted to get something that's out there on the market, ready to be delivered to your doorstep or your marina, wherever you are,
tomorrow.
in a blink, right? Like some of them are same day. And then you got others, who are a week later. But regardless, you're getting it quick. And so with lead acid, I mean, obviously, look at that. I mean, it's just embarrassing to see it, honestly. It was once so amazing, and now you go, oh, why is it even there? It's there as an honorable mention to yesterday. And as we look down the line, you've got lithium iron phosphate, which, as we've already established, is kind of the king of the hill right now. And then you have some that are the new kids that are coming in, solid state sodium ion. These are talked about a lot, actually. When you get out there and dig into this world a little bit, you're like, oh my God, that's all everyone wants to talk about. I'm like, what about the stuff that's working for everyone and has been for years? Can we talk about that again? No, we want to talk about this stuff. And so, Patrick, before I go through the winners and losers, or I think we did the approved and denied, which if you're not aware, good. If you know me at all, I'm gonna put little stamps on these. That's happening. That's coming. So, Patrick, any other input since this is your topic before we move on?
Well, I mean, the other thing to think about is what you can actually go and buy today, and what's available on the shelf and what you can do. Because if I wanted to get going next month, I want stuff that I know has been tried and tested. I don't want to be experimenting on my boat. I'd rather be sailing my boat. So a lot of the newer tech, you really want to wait. You don't want to be bleeding edge. It's okay to be leading edge, but yeah, I always want somebody else to have proof
Be the guinea
something for
pig,
me,
yeah.
and that's what I do to my boat as well.
Okay, now, did I hear you just say it's okay to be leaning edge or leading edge, but not
Yeah.
bleeding edge?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay,
With
those
most
are
things in life.
words to live by, folks. Mark it down, put it in your journal, put it on your iPhone. It's okay to be leading edge, but you don't want to be bleeding edge. That's fantastic. First time I've heard it. I love it. So let's dive into a little bit here and see. And I will say, Patrick has really taught me a lot. And one thing he's taught me is the importance of converting to our non-American viewers. We have quite a few of them. Patrick himself is a non-American viewer, and he likes to privately, I'm going on air to tell everyone, he will privately destroy you for it, like make you feel bad. Not really. He's a gentleman. But he did point out after our first or second episode, he was like, not everyone uses those same units, Jason. And I went, oh crap, that's true. So With all that said, we've got euros, we've got dollars, we've got kilograms, we've got pounds, and it was just a whole lot more work for me to deal with. But I'm glad that we did it because it looks pretty good. So right out the gate, we have denied on cost. Like, you're out of here. Sorry, Solid State. You're too freaking expensive.
Right, for now. For now.
For now. Yes.
Like Patrick said, leading edge and bleeding edge. I have a sneaking suspicion that Solid State, as time goes on and the technology gets better and more, in demand, and the supply is more, that the price will go down for sure.
Absolutely.
I
But for right
know that.
now, they get stamped denied because they cost $9,000.
Yep.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, once we start seeing them in cars and the cars sort of get written off and we can pull those things out of battery packs, I think they'll start flowing into everything else in life. But I think at the moment, there's even doubt on whether you can actually buy a proper solid state battery on Amazon or whether you're buying a pseudo semi solid state
Whoa,
battery.
whoa. We're going to have to unpack that. He just came at you, Amazon. I know you're watching. I know you're listening. We're coming after you right now. I need to unpack that. What do you mean by that, Patrick?
There's been a couple of companies selling what they call solid state or solid state batteries, which have actually been opened up and they found regular cells, NMCs, lithium ion type cells inside.
Are you
And
telling
there's other
me that
companies
there
that
are
have
companies that are not entirely honest and misrepresent the truth? Come on.
Surprise, yeah.
That's a crazy shock, yeah. Well, that's happened. Some of the companies, I mean, if you're buying a solid state and you end up with lithium ion, you should be very upset because there's a massive risk there. If you're buying a semi-solid state and you end up with LiFePO4, you probably, you're not going to die. You're probably not getting your money's worth. But anytime a cell is going to be 3.7 volts or so that you're buying, you should be worried. You should look into that a lot more. If you buy a cell and it's a 3.2 volt cell, whether it's solid state or not, it's not going to kill you. There's no 3.2 volt cells at the moment that will kill you. So you're probably okay there.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's see who wins this one because, we can't tell by reading the numbers. And the answer is, there we go. Lithium iron phosphate for the win on cost. Now, gentlemen, do we all agree with this?
For now.
I love it. I love how Aaron's got to throw in the for now.
Yeah, for now. For now it makes sense, but as time goes on, I think the rankings may change.
Now let's jump over to weight because weight, let's all take a moment and chuckle to ourselves at how freaking heavy lead acid is. Like, good Lord, that is a monstrosity. Shall we call it a walrus? Hippopotamus. That's huge.
Yeah, so here's a little tidbit that I'd have to do some more research because I don't totally know. But on lead acid, maybe Patrick can help out. On lead acid, is it possible for lithium iron phosphate to be a motor, or not a motor, an engine starting battery, like an engine cranking battery? Yeah, because I've done some little bit of inquiring with Redodo, and they were selling the lead acid battery for an engine starting battery, and it mentioned that their lithium iron phosphate didn't really have an adequate amount of power to start a diesel engine, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, that is sort of where lead acid still excels, and it's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's the amount of power, how many amps it can put out. Because your lithium iron phosphates have to go through a BMS, you've got to work out how much the BMS can support. Or if you're risky enough, you can bypass the BMS for discharge and then just use the BMS for charge. But if you've got a diesel engine, probably a lead acid battery is the thing at the moment to start it for you. It's going to change again in future. And I know a lot of people who do have diesel boats run hybrid systems where you've got a lead acid and you've got a lithium, and you put them in parallel, and the lead acid can start things and the lithium can store huge amounts of power. You call it a hybrid setup. It works quite well, actually.
Now, one of the things I love about our show here, guys, and our chat, I like to think of it more of a chat, is the fact that we balance some pretty heady stuff with some sensitivity and consideration for the less technical viewer. And so let's break this down just a moment because we've brought up a topic here that, like Patrick talked about, a BMS. So a BMS is a battery management system. And Patrick, why is it that lithium iron phosphate requires that, whereas a lead acid does not?
So there's two reasons why you want to have a BMS. The first is keep your cells balanced. So by balanced, you want in a 12-volt battery with lithium iron phosphate, you've got four cells working with each other. So they're all in series. So you got 3.2 all the way up to 12.8. A lead acid battery, you've actually got six cells in a lead acid battery, but they stay balanced together. They're each 2-volt cells, and it gets you to 12 volts. If things go and drift, so you charge and you discharge, and there's a gap between the two voltages, where it gets too high, the battery will switch off. And if one of them gets too low, the battery will switch off as well. So the first job of the BMS is to balance those batteries. So there's two types of balancing. The one uses a resistor to pull the high cells down, and the other uses capacitors to transfer power from a high cell to a low cell. In theory, that's more efficient, and you can push more power around. And I think the JK BMS that a lot of people run work like that, and some of the daily BMSs now will work like that as well. But it doesn't need to be a lot of power moving, especially when you're charging with solar, because solar sits fully charged for a very long time usually. So it does drain very slowly. So my BMS has got 250 milliamps of balancing current, and my batteries are always in balance. They're perfect. So you don't really need a lot of power to keep them in balance, but you do need to keep them in balance. And when your batteries get older, they like to drift more. I know in one of my electric bicycles, I had one bad cell, and eventually I couldn't get it charged and discharged. So that's the first job of the BMS. The second job is to protect everything. So what it does by protecting everything is if the voltage gets too high, it cuts the entire battery. You lose your whole battery pack. And if it gets too low, you lose your whole battery pack. It cuts off instantly. Massive problem for people who use it as a starter battery, because if your alternator is charging something and it's sucking in the amps, and next thing it cuts it off, you fry your alternator. So when you go to diesel, that's one of the reasons why lead is so good to have. But for the rest of us, it's your emergency cutoff for the battery, and you should never see it happen. If your battery pack is set to charge to the right voltage and to stop discharging at the right voltage, you should never reach that point. But it is there as the ultimate backup point.
So now you also mentioned the importance of having a BMS that can handle the load. So what are we talking about there, just briefly, and then we can move on?
Yeah, so BMS is rated in terms of amps, and you get them. My 12-volt battery is a 100-amp battery, so I can supply 1,200 watts there. My 48-volt battery is a 300-amp BMS, so I can supply 15, 300 amps by 15 kilowatts. I'll never get there, but those are the options. So you never want to be able to hit your limits on your BMS. Your BMS is like it's like your fuse box in the house. When something goes drastically wrong, the fuse cuts. But in every other situation, you don't control your house with a fuse box. The fuse box lives in the background and doesn't do anything until something has gone wrong.
That's brilliant. Okay, so jumping through here,
Yep.
Who is going to win on weight? And the answer to that is, no drum roll needed, that would be lithium iron phosphate. Now, I think that's pretty obvious because, you got the weight is as it is. But let's break that down just a bit, because you might be looking at solid state and asking yourself, but why? Like, they're smaller and supposedly lighter because they don't have the liquid inside, right? But in our example, we had to go with 12 volt by 104 amp cells, which meant that we needed to do 3 4-cell series connected banks in order to get that to actually result in a 48 volt 304 amp scenario. And so as such, then, okay, we've exceeded weight because of how many we needed in order to get that done. And that's some of the weirdities that you run into with batteries as you're starting to build a bank. If you're like me and you're like, this is so new, and I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm using an AI as a thought partner, and I'm watching all the videos that I can, what's happening? You actually need to really think through, is this series connected? Is this parallel connected? And how do I combine these correctly so that I don't cause a problem for me and my loved ones within arm's reach? Any thoughts on connecting those cells into a bank that we want to break down?
So this is something that people used to do quite a lot. Is they used to buy 12-volt batteries to make a 48, and they'd connect four 12-volt batteries together. Now, when you do that with lithium, it means you've got a 12-volt battery with a BMS connected to another 12-volt battery with a BMS connected to another. You've got four of them. And the BMS is your weak point. The cells almost never fail, but a BMS can fail. And when you connected four in series, you've got 4 points of failure. So one of those BMS dies, and you lose the entire battery bank. Whereas if you could buy a 48-volt battery bank, and if it was 100 amps and you connect three in parallel, there you've got two backup BMSs. So if one dies, your battery bank will carry on running normally. It's always better to set up a battery to be at the voltage you want to use it before you start paralleling other batteries in or seriesing up BMSs and that. You never want to do that.
Now, there is a point there to be made too, where, okay, if I'm series connecting four 12-volt batteries, I'm going to have to multiply my voltage. And so that's going to be 12 times 4 is 48. And
Yeah.
so if I'm parallel connecting, then the voltage doesn't change, but the amp hours will change. And so that's going to have to add or double. And so my 104
Yeah.
would become 208, so on and so forth as you get going. Correct me if I'm wrong there, because
You're
I
not
think
drawing
I
it.
understood that correctly, but I'm wanting to make sure I'm right because I don't want to speak
Yeah, it's
wrong.
something I
And I'm
keep
still learning.
forgetting that people don't know, because after a few years, it's sort of like in your head. You forget that it's
Yes.
how you got to work out. Yeah, parallel, add the amps together. Series, add the volts together.
There you go. And so, Aaron, when you're looking at yours, are you going to be doing a lot of series and parallel connections? Most likely.
Most likely, yeah. Most likely.
Now, do we want to chat a little bit about the cabling needed when we start running into that kind of stuff, or are we getting too deep there?
There's online cable calculators, I think, which can give you the answers that you want to get. But basically, the more amps you're going to pull, the bigger your cables need to be.
Yeah, and
If you're
the bigger
running
the cable, so the
48 volts and you need to push 5 kilowatts, it's easy. You've got 100 amps that you need to push, so you need cables that are like maybe 70 square millimeters, or I'm not sure. You guys use zeros, gauges, and that, and
yeah,
zeros, and zeros, and I never know where that ends. But yeah, if you need to push huge amounts of amps and you can go higher voltage, it makes the cable smaller. But you can't always do that. You have to work within the boundaries. So when you're on a boat, most of the boat stuff stops at 48 volts. Whereas my bicycles, you could put in whatever you liked. And you had one bike that was 76 volts and another bike that was 83 volts, and that meant I could have thinner cables, and that's nice.
Excellent stuff. Guys, if you're new to this world, I hope you come back and reference this because this stuff right here, man, this is gold. And like Patrick said, there's so many web resources out there to clue yourself in. And so be sure that you're being safe out there with this stuff. Now let's dive over to projected lifespan because this is where things get a little trickier. So obviously, I mean, come on, lead acid, give me a break. Are you even here to play? But then we got to go to solid state. Like, good grief. Now, I know this is all like some of this is theoretical, but we're starting now to get where, okay, we're having videos out on YouTube even where we're like, okay, we're seeing some info. It's time to start factoring this in as real stuff now.
Hey,
Let's
Patrick.
chat here. What do we think about lifespan?
Patrick, can you do me a favor
Yeah.
for the newbie viewers too? Explain what a cycle is.
Oh,
What's
Oh, that's a good question. That's a great question, actually, Aaron. So what they do when they count a cycle is they count a battery draining from 100% to zero as one cycle. Now, because you never do that, you're never going to drain your batteries that much, and you probably never charge them that much. If you've got a 304 amp hour battery, like in this chart over here, they count one cycle as if when you have used up 304 amps and recharge, that counts as a cycle. So if you only charge you drain half your battery before you charge, which is pretty much what I do most of the time, and that it'll take you two of those drain and fills to count as one cycle. In which case, if you look at the cycle numbers for lithium, if you've got 4,000 cycles, but it takes you 8,000 days to do it, how many years are we talking there? It's
Not a lot.
25 years or so. It takes you
Yeah.
forever to do that. So you need to decide how many cycles do you really need? These are also not cycles to zero. Sorry, not cycles to no battery remaining. These are cycles until you've got 80% left of your battery capacity.
Yep.
Yeah,
Cool
yeah,
deal.
that's, I mean, the numbers are just awesome when you look at everything outside of lead acid. Like, where can you go wrong here? You've got a long lasting battery, is
Yep.
what we're really
Yeah.
getting at. And so
You,
when you jump over into energy density, now we're talking a different conversation.
Yeah.
And so let's run through our stamps. We got denied there because, frankly, lead acid is a dinosaur. It's time for it to go away. Other than starting, that's fine. I'll concede that point. And then when we look at the the numbers, the early numbers we're seeing, good grief, that's a lot of energy density packed into that solid state cell. Like, good night. Talk to me more about that, guys. What are we thinking?
I'm thinking somehow your second column, the weight for 48, doesn't seem to show that, but I think it's just because it's early days at the moment.
Hmm.
I think it's gonna catch up, and we're gonna have twice the capacity for the same weight, or half the weight for the same capacity, which is going to be great. I'm always trying to cut some weight with my boat. So if I could take out my 85 kilogram battery pack and replace it with a 40 kilogram battery pack, brilliant. And then I'll put another one in the other side and have twice the range.
Well, and that brings up a point because I did find 48-volt versions of solid state, but not the Renogi. There were help me out, the marine, what was it again, solid state marine, I think is what it was, and Aaron brought it up too in our
Yep.
chat. And so there's another provider out there of solid state. Again, they're expensive. I know they're trying to recoup their research costs. I respect that. That's fine. But
So Jason, the solid state marine, after speaking with the company directly, they claim that all of their internals and everything to put together that battery is all being sourced from the U.S. Nothing.
Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, that probably
there's
makes
something there.
that probably makes a more expensive battery.
Yeah,
So,
fair enough. Paying
yeah.
U.S. salaries, and when you look at that, I mean, they did have, in fairness, a combination that I did not think through. I was looking for 12 volt or 48 volt. They have a 24 volt, and they're not offered on Amazon, so I discredited them for this table for that reason. But honestly, it's worth disclosing that it was like 7,000 and change, something like that. I want to say it was like 7,600 or something like that for creating a 48 volt, 304 amp solution with their batteries using their 24 volt cells. And so, again, it's all entry level. It's coming out, stuff to be thought about. Now, let's talk a little bit about why sodium ion even deserved to make this table. Like, why did this even deserve an honorable mention, given one, how young it is, but then two, the fact that it didn't win anything, even though it's one of the newer kids on the block?
Hey, Jason, before we dive into that, maybe Patrick can speak a little bit about the energy usability on a lead acid as opposed to a lithium iron phosphate.
Good.
Where I'm gonna try to explain it, but I'm probably gonna butcher it. But when you use a lead acid, you don't have all of the energy that's stored in the lead acid battery is usable. Like, not a lot of it is usable, as a matter of fact. But when you go to a lithium iron phosphate, there's a heck of a lot more energy stored in that battery that can be used as opposed to a lead acid. And with sodium ion, if you want to tie that into it, because I don't know, is that the case with that too? Does that make sense or no?
Yeah, so you're talking about sort of usable capacity, which is a good thing to talk about. So on a lithium iron phosphate battery, they say you can drain it down to 20% quite safely and drain it up, and you've got no damage happening to the battery. With the lead, they start talking about 50% as the part where you shouldn't go into the bottom 50%. So
Yep.
in theory, you only get to use half your battery instead of getting to use 80% of your
Yep.
battery.
Yep.
Sodium ion seems to have some of that as well. and it's we don't quite know yet because it's such a new technology. But in theory, um, you can charge it and discharge it pretty much like a lead acid battery. Sorry, pretty much like a lithium iron phosphate battery, but the voltage drop is the same as a lead acid battery. So it's kind of in between the two. And when the voltage drops, then you obviously need to use more amps to get the same amount of power, uh, which uh, which means you're heating things up even more, and then you drain the power even more. So it's an interesting battery. It's one I wanted to work really well. Um, I think it's still leading edge. I think we'll get better with sodium ion as well. But it's never going to. So sodium is about 3 times heavier than lithium as a single atom, basically. So it's never going to get to the point where it's as light as a lithium,
So
but it's
so
pretty easy
look
to
look
get.
who shows up. So look who shows up. Our buddy
Hmm.
Modular Hippo talking about ballast and batteries. I was going to mention that
Yeah,
earlier.
that's
Yeah,
true.
Mr. Battery Ballast himself.
Right.
Okay, go ahead. Uh,
That's fantastic. So, Patrick, why in the world, with sodium ion being so new, so questionable, so unproven, why should we even leave it in this table at all?
Because there's so much sodium in the world that we can make as many batteries as we want to, and we will never run out.
I
yeah,
mean, legit, when you think about the amount of sodium that's on land alone, let alone
Yeah.
in the ocean, like my God, I mean, and you can absolutely process that in so many ways. And when you tie in, y- uh, environmentally friendly ways to process that, I mean, good grief,
Yeah.
it's a game changer, right? Like even with a little bit smaller life cycle, even with, a little more questionable on the amount of energy that it can store, even with a little bit, as Patrick's going to talk about with the state of charge arc. My goodness, the possibilities are endless when you think about how cheap that will get because
Hmm.
it's made of such prevalent materials. Now there is one last thing here, and that is there is a special stamp that's going out here, and that is we're going to brand one of these battery types with a very special moniker. In fact, it could be that this thing becomes our own mascot here at Solar Sailing. I don't know. It's just that impressive. And our very own Aaron Andrews, he is the one who shared this lovely image. So I'm going to let him describe why solid state batteries gets that special little guy.
yeah. So that special little guy is the wealthy guinea pig. So right now, the sodium ion batteries, if you look at the cost is extremely high because it's bleeding edge technology. I would call it right now. So there's people out there that want to test bleeding edge technology, and that's awesome because that helps us, the guys that want to test leading edge technology, which people have already tested before us. But I'm not going to be that wealthy guinea pig testing the bleeding edge technology. Not only is it expensive, but there's a huge amount of risk that goes in with being a super duper pioneer, right? Where you're testing things for the beta testing for the first time that may haven't been tested mainstream yet. So
So there he is, folks. The guinea pig who is rolling in cash, able to go out there on the bleeding edge. Oh, I love him. All right. Now,
that,
we're going to put this out here and we're just going to breeze past this one. Now, we've talked about energy density, we've talked about cost, we've talked about weight. There is also a very big conversation out there that is misconstrued on a lot of different fronts. And I am not going to get worked up, even though earlier today I did get worked up as we were chatting through what we're talking about today.
yep.
And that is this concept of the environmental impact. And one thing that I've heard so much is, oh, the electric cars, they actually, when you factor in the mining and the refining process, they're actually worse for the environment than a gas car. I'm like, Let's have a
Yeah.
different conversation. But
Well, I mean, they also say that the ingredients or the products or the materials used in the lithium batteries are not biodegradable and they're bad for the environment, and they're going to fill up the landfills because they don't,
Yep. Yep.
they're not
And
really
all of these
recyclable.
conversations are oftentimes, when you whittle it down and follow the money, they're brought to you by ExxonMobil or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that on the other extreme, we can get some folks who are like, you can never ever harm a tree in the making of whatever it is that you're doing as a human being. And I'm like, trees will be harmed. That it's humans tend to have a footprint, like the human race living and doing our thing. We're gonna have a footprint, folks. Let that go just a little bit. Cavemen were burning trees. Like, I'm sorry, they were. And so let go of the zero impact idea and meet in the middle somewhere. And what I do like about the sodium ion as a concept is when you look at this, the results here are straight out of Grok. And this was Grok and I having a conversation about in the upper left, using only academic and scientific research articles, break down the environmental impacts of mining and manufacturing LFP versus sodium ion. And it was an interesting process or journey because it really led to some interesting stuff. Now, I say interesting because so much of this is still yet to be proven, but it is worth factoring into the conversation. And I'm not saying factor it in from the angle of this is our why, this is our big reason. It's no, this is another reason. This is another thing to think about and to factor in. And maybe, I don't know, can we have a mature conversation about it where we all recognize that our own tendencies toward echo chambers and listening only to what our itching ears want to hear on either side, maybe we can maybe have a more mature conversation and look at this with different lenses and go, hey, this is a legitimate topic to talk about. Nobody wants those pictures in the bottom left. But
No.
then again, the ones in the upper right, those are intense too. Like, we have to factor in the question of, can we produce and store energy in a less harmful way? And if the answer is yes, without having catastrophic financial liability in the process, then why not? Why would we continue being irresponsible when we can be responsible or more responsible, so long as it's not completely devastating
Well,
financially? Guys, your
here's
thoughts?
here's the thing. So as time, you mentioned caveman. So when cavemen were
I did
around,
mention cavemen. I did that.
so when cavemen were around, or earlier settlers, or earlier people, humans, they didn't necessarily have the access to the same information that we have now. Like technology and stuff has definitely increased, and that gave us access to a lot more knowledge. And when you implement knowledge, that's power. But if you just sit there and do nothing, then you're not really doing anything. So, like you mentioned, I think it's important that we take what we've learned and we find what we feel is the best possible way to generate energy without totally destroying the environment. But is it going to be possible without touching the environment at all? I don't even know if that's possible. That's perfect. And to me, perfection doesn't exist. But like what Jason said, I think that we need to find that happy medium where we're able to generate the energy and the power that we need in order to keep going, because we all need energy and power to live. We're not cavemen anymore, without drastically damaging or impacting the environment. That's the happy balance for me, at least. What about you, Pat?
Patrick, your thoughts?
Well, to me, if things can be better and cleaner, you're onto a winner. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the big reasons why I've got an electric boat and not a diesel boat. When you're working at sailboat speeds, you don't need huge amounts of power. What you want is you want a nice quiet ride, and you want something very reliable. You want to flick a switch and the thing must work. So, that for me is the ultimate win. When you can go cleaner and you can go better, there's no question about it. You should do it. Um, for us at the moment, if you look at sort of how much better the environmental impact is of even something like a lithium battery compared to gas and oil, I think it's 0.03% of the total amount of pollution in the lifespan of, the use of where you get to use it. You're basically saying, okay, well, which is the most efficient bicycle to ride? It's basically you're splitting hairs here to get slightly better. I still think sometimes it's worth doing, but I think you're already so much better than anything else that your impact is probably going to be not even on the same chart as somebody still running big heavy diesels and power boats and things like that.
Hmm.
It's really a great conversation, and it's one that I hope that we can come back to at some future date, because I do feel like this is a bit of a contentious topic,
It
and
is.
it's one where I think there's a lot of irrational hostility that I feel like is fueled by some special interest, honestly, on both sides of the argument.
Mm.
And it's one that I would love to carve out here on Solar Sailing a more mature conversation about, where we can actually go, okay, yeah, there are better ways to do things. We don't have to do things
Yep.
in a bad way,
One of
you know?
the one of the interesting things is the biggest lithium producer in the world is Australia, which is a bit of a nanny state, and they do look at these things a lot, and they make more lithium than anywhere else in the world.
Yep.
Very good stuff. Let's move to this slide here, where Patrick and I have already kind of alluded to this, but I'm out of my depth a bit. I do know what I'm looking at. I think maybe some of our viewers do, but this is where we get into Patrick's world and we all just sit back and try and learn.
Yep. Exactly.
So, I mean, this was one of the charts about talking about why isn't sodium battery winning just yet? And there's a couple of different reasons. We've spoken about how it's got slightly less cycle life than LiFePO4 and how it's got slightly less energy density. This is one of the other things. So when a sodium battery is full, you've got close to 4 volts, and when it's empty, you've got close to 2 volts. So you've got a very big range in these batteries. So if you're using 16 of them to get to a 48-volt battery pack, it's going to mean that fully charged, you're sitting at 64 volts, which is quite high. And when it's empty, you're sitting at 32 volts. It's a massive range. So your motors and your inverter and everything like that needs to be able to accept this huge range. We also spoke about how when the voltage gets lower, when you've got a 32 volt pack that needs to give you 10 amps, 10 kilowatts, you need 300 amps. But when it's a fully charged pack, you need much less. So there's that change as well. But there's something I like about this chart. And the thing I like is I don't have a Victron Smart Shunt, so I never really know exactly what my state of charge is. The BMSs guess and they give you a figure. But the one thing I really like about sodium is you would know where your battery charge is based on the voltage. So if your battery is showing you 32 volts, you know it's empty. If your battery is showing you 64 volts, you know it's full. But if your battery is showing you 48 volts, you know that you're at 50%. And to be honest, I kind of like that. I like to be able to know what's going on. In terms of the electric components, they like LiFePO4 more because it's a very flat voltage curve. They live at 3.25 to 3.35 volts forever. It's only right at the beginning and right at the end they dip completely like it. But there is one big problem with sodium, and we haven't discussed it. In fact, we haven't even discussed it between us. The biggest problem with a sodium battery at the moment, and I think it's still because it's bleeding edge technology, is the round trip efficiency. So if I take a LiFePO4 cell and I charge it to 100% and I drain it to 20% and I charge it up again, that round trip efficiency is somewhere between 95 and 99%. It's incredible. You lose no power. And sodium is a lot like lead there, where a lot of the power is wasted going out and going back in. Sodium, they're claiming, is somewhere between 60 and 90 odd percent efficiency. So for somebody like me that lives on an electric boat, I want the maximum efficiency because I'm charging up every day and that's the power I'm getting to use. It's a problem that's going to go away, or at least going to shrink significantly. But at the moment, the problem is there. Your round trip efficiency is pretty bad.
That's a fascinating point, and one that I'm actually thrilled that you brought out as a aha moment for us, because it didn't spoil the aha for me. I'm sitting here going, ooh, okay, I get that. That's lovely. All right, let's jump back to our slideshow here. And as we do, this little bad boy right here buckle up, folks, because I don't want you to be caught unaware. You might pee your pants. If you need a bathroom break, maybe hit pause and come back to this later.
Buddy.
Because my heart palpitations after watching this for the first time, I was like, whew, okay, good. Okay, I'm all right. I'm all right. Everyone's okay. We're okay. All right. So that said, here we go.
Yeah.
Can
Wow.
I comment on that one?
Please do.
So I made a mistake with my battery pack. I have a mega fuse is my main fuse on the battery pack. The mega fuse is what you've just seen over there. So when they talk about fuses, they talk about how many amps this fuse can stop. And a mega fuse can only stop maybe 1,000, 2,000 amps. And a standard lithium iron phosphate battery like that can push a lot more than that. Now, that's not the worst case. Flying molten metal all over the show is not the worst case that can happen. The worst case is that the arc can carry on jumping through a fuse even after the fuse is blown and melt everything else and start a fire and burn your boat down. And so in my boat, I have to change my mega fuse for something that's better than a mega fuse. Now, the typical one is called a Class T fuse, and a Class T fuse is quite thick because it's a tube with a steel pipe going through the middle, wrapped in sand, so that when it blows, the sand extinguishes that arc really quickly, and that's what makes it so nice. There's a couple of others that do the same thing, but a Class T can pretty much stop 10 to 20,000 amps. And if you want a basic rule of thumb on how many amps you need to be able to stop, you multiply your battery capacity, if it's a LiFePO4 battery, by 20. So if you've got a 300 amp hour 48 volt pack, you multiply it by 20, you've got 6,000 amps. In theory, your battery can supply 6,000 amps. So you need a fuse that can stop more than 6,000 amps. If you've got a double battery pack, so you've got a 600 amp hour battery pack, you need to be able to stop 12,000 amps.
My
On my shopping,
goodness.
on my fitting list, touch wood, nothing has happened. The BMS is a second round of protection. It'll probably keep us safe, but make sure that you can stop the power that you need to. Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. And to see the raw power of what can happen in a blink. I mean, I've seen it where, you mistakenly cause that spark and oh, wow, it suddenly welds whatever it was that touched it immediately. You're like, there is no reaction time. There is no, it's like it's done. It's happened. And now you're going, that just happened. Like, wow, oh my goodness. I love Modular Hippo here. He's our buddy. He's come on the show. He's been a special guest. We hope to have him again, actually, as he's building his boat. He says, whatever becomes the next industry standard, I hope they release it in existing prismatic standard so that we can keep existing hardware, battery boxes, etc. Break that down for us, Aaron. What are your thoughts on Modular Hippo's comment?
Yeah, what he's saying, I guess, is backwards compatibility, meaning that anything that comes out in the future is there for those of us that have older technology, and we don't have to change everything out, which, yeah, hopefully it does happen that way. Typically it does, for the most part at least. But yeah, that could definitely save a lot of us a lot of money. Because when you're building this stuff out, like Patrick said, that his battery bank may probably outlast him, so he's not planning on changing, and it costs a lot of money. So he's probably not planning on changing anything out, in the near future.
Unless something really cool comes along.
Yeah, he's probably going to just add to what he currently has, or even if something really cool comes along, I don't think that he's just going to nix everything he has. He's going to figure out how to integrate everything together. What he has now, and if you have that backwards compatibility, like Modular Hippo is mentioning, that you can make them all play in the same sandbox, so to speak.
Love that. Love that. Any other comments on the battery before we bounce to our final thoughts? Wait time. You remember I come from the teaching profession. Wait time's a thing. I can do it. Let's go back to
Patience. Yeah. No, I don't really have anything. Patrick, you have anything or no?
I'm saving it for the final thoughts.
Okay.
Ooh, I always love that about. I think it's the European, South African part of Patrick where he's like, "I'm playing the game of poker."
Patience.
Yeah, we
Patience.
Americans are like, "Here's everything right here with all the passion we got." It's great.
Yeah, patience.
Well, let's jump into final thoughts. But before we do, I do want to remind everyone that we have shifted to more of a predictable pattern with our scheduling, where the first episode of each month we are going to have a special guest, or we're going to strive to have. Aaron is really good at finding people and getting them to come on the show, and so we lean heavily on him for that. Um, in addition to that, we have then 3 additional weeks where it's Aaron, Patrick, and myself choose the topic. And so this week was Patrick's, and he dropped it like a bomb on us. He was like, "We're doing batteries." I was like, "Oh, wow. The biggest motherload topic that you got other than maybe solar panels." And then Aaron, true to Aaron form, is like, "I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to wait."
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think
so
I
that's
think I
all.
got I think I got a bombshell coming though. Like
Ooh.
major controversial topic, and we'll try to keep it clean and nice and classy. But it's pretty controversial for sure.
I love it. That's just a comment from a friend there, saying he enjoys seeing us back in the action here. And so as we go toward the upcoming week, we'll definitely be shouting that out. Curious, maybe put them in the comments, maybe here live, what your thoughts are. Us coming at a Friday afternoon here in the States, which what's it over there where you are, Patrick, like 3 a.m. or something? It's got to be late.
It's 10:30, yeah.
Oh
PM.
my goodness. Yep. For those of us over 50, like me,
Yeah, I'm
that
in
is
bed by
might
that
as well
time.
be 3 a.m., right?
Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
I have the 8 p.m. bedtime for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go with my final thoughts, and that is that the technologies that are coming out, while it's true, you need to be safe, you need to be thoughtful, you need to be mindful, at the same time, it shouldn't terrify you to the place of inactivity or run away. I'm too scared to try. Should you be wise? Should you be thoughtful? Should you be studious? Absolutely. You are dealing with a powerful storage mechanism that you're putting a lot of electrons in that really want to flow. And when you connect them in, they're ready. They're going to flow, and they're not going to hold back. But as long as you have, a modicum of preparedness, this is not something you should be terrified of trying. Get consultation if you're really out of your depth and you are not if you are worried about the damage that can be done and you're not willing to try and do it yourself, then prepare yourself. You're going to pay a little bit, but get someone to do it for you. Outside of that, that's my final thoughts. Is this stuff's not so terrifying that you should be just sliding away from it, not interested. Now, Patrick in the past has said this, but it's only to Bali, okay, not to you guys who want someone who's good at this stuff to do it for you. Okay. He thought he was going to live that down. He will never live this down. Bali, Patrick will do your boat for you. Just give him a place to sleep and he's good. Basically, if Bali gives the Extraordinary Horizons offer to Patrick, he'll take it. And so there it is. Speaking of, let's go to either Patrick or Aaron. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah. So my final thoughts are, what is standard now used to be bleeding edge, and I mean, it takes time. Like Jason said, don't be afraid, because lithium iron phosphate was bleeding edge when everyone was using lithium ion, and then lead acid is the granddaddy of them all. So as these things come more into prevalency, if that's even a word, they're going to become more mainstream. So to keep it short and sweet, you can sit back a little bit and wait for what you have coming with sodium ion, or you could use lithium iron phosphate, which is the standard now, and go from there. Yeah, I'm going to keep it short and sweet.
Very
Go ahead,
good. Patrick, take us out.
Yeah, so mine is actually very conservative for me, which is very unusual. But if you don't want to think about how you put your batteries together, go for lithium iron phosphate and just follow one of the many online tutorials that the guys put them together. You can get somebody like Off Grid Garage does really cool stuff with batteries, and Will Pros is the battery master.
Yep.
Just go and follow what they do. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to think they've done it, they've tried it, they've tested it. It's going to last 10 to 20 years if you build it correct. Yeah. And it's not difficult either. You just basically follow the steps, put these rings over here, screw them together, and everything works. It's very, very simple. So easy that a Jason can do it.
I love it. To put my name in there with Prowse and the rest, it's a little ridiculous. You should feel ashamed of yourself, Patrick. That was ridiculous. Folks, thank you again for watching. Please do like, subscribe, comment, and share, but also please re-engage. We also put these out. They're not just on YouTube. We stream out on Facebook. I know Extraordinary Horizons has been pumping it out on theirs now. And so we've ponied up some money so that Restream will allow everybody on the chat here to pump it out to their channels as we get to that stage. But in addition, we put this out on Apple Podcasts. It's out on Amazon Podcasts. Anywhere podcasts are brought to you, through Spotify as well. And so if you want to hear the audio version, there's still some good stuff. Get out there and listen to that stuff. We're bringing it to you, and we hope you find value in it. Please do, again, share your stories, your projects. We would love to hear from them. And at least one of us, if not all of us, are going to respond. So there you go. Patrick, it always comes back to you to give us the final send-off.
Thanks for watching.
Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you.
See ya.